If you are a teacher, parent, administrator, student, and/or anyone who loves reconnecting children with nature, and you want to figure out how to cultivate learning gardens and nature-based curriculum, then this is the podcast, the Outdoor Classrooms podcast. My name is Victoria Hackett. I am the founder of Outdoor-Classrooms.com and the Secret Gardens Nature Classes. I love witnessing the magic that happens when children are playfully learning outdoors. Observing the return of wonder and curiosity when children are interacting with nature is pure magic. This is the podcast that is going to help you capture children's interest and give you not only inspiration, but some real life strategies that are going to help you figure out how to use the outdoor space, your outdoor space, as a teaching tool, so you can enlighten the playful learning experience for young children. Welcome to our Outdoor Classrooms community. Hello, everyone. Victoria Hackett here. Today's episode is going to be a little more personal. Over Mother's Day weekend, I traveled home to spend some time with my mom, who is 93 years young and still living at home in the home that I grew up in and the home that she absolutely loves. And during that visit, I found myself thinking deeply about something we don't really talk about nearly enough: the relationship between nature, aging, and the quality of life. So, in the work that I do, we spend so much time discussing the importance of nature for children and outdoor play, and the importance of that fresh air and incorporating movement and sensory experiences and wonder and this connection to the natural world and creating these incredible outdoor classrooms. And how can we do that in such a way, and bringing in that research. But this weekend truly, truly reminded me that nature is not just for children. Nope. It is something we need across the entire lifespan. And seeing my mother, as healthy as she is at 93, still walking around the block and able to do that, I solely believe because she's still doing her gardening. She's still enjoying everything that nature brings to us. So in today's episode, I want to share reflections from my visit home, what I felt like to sit in my mother's kitchen surrounded by sunlight and bird song, watching tiny yellow flowers appear on the tomato plants in her garden oasis. But I also want to explore the larger conversation around why nature matters so deeply for older adults, and the research on aging and nature, and the emotional benefits of gardens and outdoor spaces, the importance of beauty, purpose, and routine in elderhood, and what we can learn when we begin to see nature as an essential care across every season of life. Because what I've witnessed is that oftentimes we can house our elderly in a building, and they don't get to go outside as often as my mother takes naps outside. And just lying there and enjoying the hearing and listening to the birds and the rhythm, the beauty, it's incredible. So it wasn't simply my mother living at home. I witnessed someone still connected to life, to the rhythm, to the beauty, to the growth. And honestly, it changed the way I was thinking about nature and aging. So I would like to dedicate this episode to my mom on her birthday, Judith Hackett. This one's for you. So walking into my mother's home on Mother's Day weekend, the first thing I noticed was the light. The sun streaming through the kitchen windows, birds moving constantly outside. So they're down in Maryland, so they're way ahead of us here. At the time of this recording is May. And flowers blooming everywhere. The soft sounds of spring are drifting through the doors. And then there were the tomato plants. The last time I had visited, we had planted those tomato plants on her porch. And this time I visited, it was these tiny yellow flowers had started appearing almost overnight. It was really fun to see. And each morning, my mother takes a walk around the block quite religiously. And every morning we check on these tomato plants. She, of course, notices them immediately, the little yellow flowers. And at 93 years old, she's still paying attention to new growth. We take our walk, and after every single walk, we walk through the garden. I do a little weeding for her, and we acknowledge and say hello. It's almost like we're saying hello to each plant and just seeing all the incredible growth that's going on. Honestly, it's just standing there in the kitchen, surrounded by her garden oasis. There's no other way to describe it. It's truly a garden oasis. It's as there's a bay window in it. It's as if you're watching garden TV. But this is when I realized that this is about so much more than gardening. This is about connection and about identity. And this is about remaining rooted in life itself. There's something incredibly grounding about remaining connected to the familiar outdoor spaces as we age. My mother knows every corner of that garden. She remembers what blooms first. She notices what changed from the last season. She's waiting for the seeds to come up. She's like, "Where are they? They're taking so long." She watches for the birds to return, and on her property, it's absolutely amazing. There are just so many doves. They love hanging out on this trellis, which is really fun to watch, especially if you're sitting at the kitchen table and you're watching these two doves just hanging out, and we just giggle and laugh, and they visit around the same time. And my brother and my mother and I just sat there, and it's amazing. In the morning, the birds, of course, the chorus is quite loud. And in the late afternoon, early evening, it's completely silent. So, really noticing the sounds and the rhythm of the birds, there's a relationship there between person and place that has been built over decades. And I realized this weekend that the garden is not simply something pretty to look at. It gives her rhythm, and it gives her purpose, and it gives her connection to life continuing around her. It's incredible to think about just the concept of aging in place versus simply staying home and being indoors all the time. The layout of her garden is you can open up the French doors and it's all there. It's sort of an indoor-outdoor experience, exactly the way we want our outdoor classrooms to be. It's kind of a indoor-outdoor experience. So her home is like that. So for her, it's incredibly important for anybody aging in place is familiar environments. The garden creates a routine, a meaning, a memory, and sensory stimulation. And she knew exactly what time it was time to plant the peas and the beans and so on, and going out and getting the tomatoes. She knew exactly what to do. She put them in, and it's been fun just waiting and watching and seeing what happens. This is the difference between just surviving and living, but living and thriving. It's these outdoor spaces that support that emotional well-being. So not only for my mother, but also for myself and for the whole, for all of us. And so beauty still matters in elderhood. So I'd like to just pause here for a moment and talk about your parents building the garden over the years, or even my parents building a garden over the years. What were some favorite flowers or spaces? I actually remember my father talking about how difficult roses were to build. So every time I go by a rose bush, I have his voice in the back of my mind saying how difficult it is to grow roses. But interesting enough, my mother has a lot of rose bushes. So just different flowers and she likes to extend her walk so she can see the other side of the house. And one of the walks, it was neat. One of the neighbors stopped us and said, "Oh, Judith, your garden is just absolutely gorgeous." So truly, the effort and the time and the love and the care that they put into their garden over the years has just become a container of love that is sort of, it almost feels like it hugs her every day. And then all the memories that are tied to the yard. As young children, I'm the youngest of 5, so they used to put us to work, working in the garden, so to speak, on the weekends, but to get out of it, we had lots of rabbits and different animals, and we'd always let them out of their cages. So we'd spend all afternoon trying to get the animals back in the cages so we didn't have to work, do the gardening. So it's a beautiful space, and there was a swing set in one area, now that's it. There's a beautiful tree there now, and how the garden has just evolved. There's also a dogwood tree there that just was planted by a bird or a squirrel or just it's a free-form one. So the excitement of watching that and seeing how much it grows. And the beauty of the rain that happened that when we were there, my mother's still lying on the porch on her chaise, but not going inside because she wanted to listen to the rain, and just excited to the fact that the rain was naturally watering her garden. And it just evolved with our family, this garden. And what feels like for me to return to that space is I feel so fortunate because it is so incredibly gorgeous. And to see her in this space and so happy in this space also is such a delight to see. I want to just take a moment and also talk a little bit about what the research is saying about nature and older adults and how it's incredibly powerful. So, we often think of gardens and outdoor play as something children need for healthy development. That's what we've been talking about, right? We're talking a lot about children. But research shows that nature supports healthy aging in many of the same ways. So, studies show that time in nature can lower stress, reduce anxiety, improve mood, and support emotional well being in older adults. When adults get stressed or they get worried or they get nervous, and it's that same type of thing that children may be experiencing. And when you open that door, take them outside, and that stress is going to just roll off. So, and honestly, you can feel that when you walk into spaces like my mother's garden. I mean, it's just, I wish I could take you all there. The nervous system just softens. My father used to say the goal is to hide the road. So they really spent a lot of time planting shrubs and trees and whatnot so we couldn't see the road. So you're sitting on this patio and you can't see the neighbors, you can't see the road, and not they didn't want to see anybody, but they wanted to have this oasis feeling. And when you're in that kind of space, the pace changes. Your nervous system softens. It's that lowering the stress hormones. We are feeling a reduced anxiety. Oftentimes, we will improve emotional regulation. So, again, no matter what the age, this calming effect of natural environments. And what I also love about my mother's home is how much sun comes into every room, really, especially the kitchen. So you could be indoors or outdoors and feeling that sun, and it changes your mood because you have that connection to nature. The other beautiful thing is that now that she's 93, she used to do all the work herself and all the gardening herself, but she's gotten to the point that she'll finally accept some help. So it's especially beautiful because it's been mulched and it's been taken care of, and so she just absolutely takes delight in that she's feels like she's won the lottery actually, because the work that she used to do and the gardens look even better now that she's got people that are supporting and helping her in that whole process and keeping the gardens alive. So, a little more research. Gardening also supports the cognitive engagement. It involves memory, planning, sensory experiences, movement, observation, and attention to change. So at 93, my mother still notices the tiny yellow flowers appearing in the tomato plants because every single time, every single morning that we went out for a walk, we would pause and we would look at her tomato plants all lined up and notice how the flower each morning was getting a little bit bigger. And then we would go to the dogwood, and the dogwood was a little bit taller, and she still tracks the seasons and she still observes what's blooming. She says, and if she sees a blank spot in her garden, she's up, I got to get something for that place. Or up, I've tried to put something in that space and it always dies. So she's still observing what's blooming and what needs care. And that noticing matters more than you think. That gardening engages the brain. The seasonal rhythms support orientation. The sensory stimulation matters. And the observation keeps people mentally engaged. So with her, she's observing everything. She wants to take the extra walk so she can walk on the back steps up through her garden so she can see the whole thing. So nature encourages that mindfulness and attention. And the most beautiful thing is, I think what makes it that oasis is the sound of the birds. I have to say, there are so many birds there that my brother will say, "Oh my goodness, they wake you. They're so loud in the morning, they'll wake you up. They're sort of your alarm clock." But it's a beautiful, you sort of forget where you are, which is sort of a beautiful thing. And so there's this gentle movement and mobility and flexibility that you're moving and balance and coordination, even walking through the garden on the paths and whatnot, balancing and coordinating and noticing the hanging baskets and the colors and the just the fresh air alone and the sunlight. We were so, so, so lucky with the weather. It didn't rain until the last day and it got quite cold. So we didn't go for our walk. And when you miss a walk, you notice it. Everything gets a little stiff. You don't get outside. But the beautiful thing is that we still had access to the outdoors through the windows. So we could still watch the doves that were on the trellis and still giggle about that. And just even the sound of rain was lovely. But those outdoor routines encourage that activity. Nature also helps reduce isolation. Isn't that amazing? You would think, well, I'm here alone, so I must be in isolation. But the gardens create opportunities for conversation, connection, storytelling, and shared experiences. And these outdoor spaces remind us that we are still part of the living world. And so I'm back here in Massachusetts now, and I even took a big hike this morning. And I was alone, I was in isolation, but I did feel very, very connected. So it wasn't my mother's garden, but it was in the woods. And so again, another outdoor space reminding us we are still part of a larger living world. So maybe this is why gardens feel so alive. And this is why I love incorporating the 4 different types of teaching gardens: gardens that feed, gardens that attract wildlife, gardens for art and beauty, and gardens for outdoor learning stations. This is all the foundation work that we talk about at Outdoor-Classrooms.com. So it's not because of the flowers themselves, but because they keep us participating in life. I mean, isn't that amazing? Why gardens feel so alive is not because the flowers themselves, but because the flowers keep us participating in life. The gardens keep us participating. So we spend a lot of time talking about safety as people age. Safety matters, of course, but I think sometimes we forget to talk about the joy or the beauty or the wonder or the purpose. So my mother's garden still gives her something to tend to, something to notice, and something to anticipate. So the importance of this purpose in aging, because I've seen it on the other end, when that is taken away from somebody and the decline happens. And my mother even talks about it with her friends, a friend that was in a gardening group with her that all of a sudden couldn't have access to her garden and how that depleted her. So she talked about that as we were when we were there. Caring for living things creates meaning. And you don't necessarily have to have this huge garden oasis. You can have a garden in pots. My mother's case, it preserves her identity. This is part of who she is. And I have a feeling all five of us have become avid gardeners and and part of our own identity is with the garden. I don't think I would be doing what I'm doing if it wasn't for my parents really honing in that love for gardening. And when we were growing up, it was hard work. I just remember my father just sweating, but being so proud of what he had created from his bare hands with the paths and the rocks and the stones and mixing plants and with that. And so just observing that was something to be said. So nature connects people to time and seasons, and those outdoor spaces supports that dignity and independence. And this is what I witnessed when I went home to visit my mother. So thinking about just a few reflection questions. What happens when older adults lose that connection to the outdoors? Do you know anybody that's lost that connection to the outdoors? And have you made any observations to that person when that connection has not been there? So, why are gardens often treated as optional instead of essential? This is my question, not only for our children, but also our elderly. How come they're treated as optional instead of essential? What would elder care look like if nature was centered? Oh my goodness, it would change so dramatically, and I think people would live longer, they would be happier, the longevity, it's incredible. So, how can we support aging adults in remaining connected to outdoor spaces? So those are four reflective questions to really think about, and not only for our elder adults, but also for our children. Because the research is exactly the same for both, except for the fact that our children are on the beginning of their journey and our elders are at the end of their journey. So how can we extend that journey or make that journey even more viable? So in my work, I spend so much time talking about the importance of nature for children. The children need that movement. The children need that sunlight. They need sensory experiences and they need wonder. But sitting with my mother this weekend reminded me that we never outgrow those needs. We never do. We never outgrow movement, sunlight, sensory experiences, wonder, and how important it is for us. So, in just comparing children and elders, they both benefit from a slower pace. They both thrive in sensory experiences. And I wouldn't just even say this is elder and children. I would even say the middle person too. The all of us, I would say. But in terms of comparing children and elders, both need sunlight and fresh air. They both need to experience wonder and simple things. They both benefit from connections to living things, living systems, and they both need opportunities for curiosity and observation. My feeling is when that is taken away, something else goes with it. And I think there's depression, a disconnection, that purpose and meaning for life gets taken away. And what happens when that gets taken away? The huge void. And I think we sort of numb out. So maybe the beginning and end of life have more in common than we realize. At both stages, we are drawn towards comfort, beauty, rhythm, connection, and care. So I think this visit home, not just this one, but most visits, but since it was it was Mother's Day and her birthday, this reminded me that nature is not an extra part of life. It's not enrichment. It's not decoration. It's just a part of being human. And so much of what we talk about here at Outdoor Classrooms is creating those outdoor teaching gardens, using 4 different types of teaching gardens. Even when I think of my mother's garden oasis, which is really, it sounds like a big word for a garden, but that's what it feels like when you're in her garden. So I want to invite you to reflect on how the elders in your life are connected to nature. And are there outdoor spaces filled with memory? So, what would change if we viewed nature as essential care for our elders? How can we help aging adults remain connected to sunlight, gardens, birds, fresh air, and seasonal rhythms? So, just some ideas to think about, sort of seeds of inspiration, would be to incorporate raised garden beds, and container gardens would be a great idea. So, one of the things, even in my mother's garden, is we brought up pots. So, she started her seeds and her tomatoes are actually in pots. Another thing to do is to add bird feeders outside windows. So if you can't get outdoors, it's especially wonderful in the wintertime to put the bird feeders outside so children and our elders and everybody in between can enjoy the birds. I think my mother was even talking about how wonderful it would be to even learn what the bird calls, because I think they're all talking to each other. It would just be wonderful to know which bird call goes with which bird. So that I'm like, she was just talking about becoming a birder, just even having outdoor seating areas and gardening together as either as a family or as a community or with a good friend, whatever that might be. And again, something we did every day when we were there was we took short walks outdoors, took a walk around the block. And I think that's what's keeping her young and just opening the curtains to the morning light. And that's beautiful. There's also, if it was warm enough, we would go outside and eat. So having that indoor outdoor choices, spending as much time outdoors as possible. And then bringing those flowers and herbs indoors. So again, making that an indoor-outdoor experience. So you've got, oh, and the other thing down one of her paths is she has lavender. And she's like, oh, it's coming back. It's coming back. And I know it's frustrating because I never have had, I do not have luck with lavender for some reason, but her lavender comes back year after year and looks better and better every single year. So anyway, before I left from my visit, I stood in the kitchen watching the sunlight stretch across the counters while my mother talked about those tomato plants, those tiny yellow flowers that had appeared overnight. And I kept thinking about how beautiful it is that she's 93 years old and still notices new growth. How blessed am I? So maybe that's what nature keeps teaching us across every stage of life. And again, the lessons I'm still learning from my mother. This is always something that is still unfolding, still blooming, still worth tending to. Nature's not just for children. And that's what we talk a lot about here at Outdoor-Classrooms.com. But nature is for all of us. So go and open the door, ask these questions, reflect on them, and send me a message. I would love to hear from you. So I am at Victoria at outdoor-classrooms with an S.com. Send me a message. I would love to hear how this episode resonated with you. Talk soon. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. If you're ready to take the next step and dive deeper into our community, here's how you can get involved. First, you can join our 1-hour workshops. These happen every month with fresh and exciting new topics each time. It's a great way to get a taste for what we offer. If you enjoy the workshops, you can become part of our Circle membership community, and this will give you access to not only all the new workshops that happen every month, but it will also give you access to our entire workshop library, which is growing. It will also give you access to our monthly roundtable discussions. And also, as a member, you receive exclusive discounts on all our programs. It's wonderful, wonderful family. The final step, if you would like to dig deeper into our community, is to join our Outdoor Classrooms Teacher Certification Program. This program is for those educators who are eager to dig even deeper into our programming, and it's the perfect next step. If you want to learn more about each of these programs, or you're not sure where you need to start, or any questions that you might have, schedule a one-on-one discovery call with me, Victoria Hackett. I will put all of that information in the show notes. You can also go to our website at www.outdoor-classrooms.com to learn more information. We can't wait to welcome you into our community. Until next time,